Hi and welcome back to Cooking Around the World for Iramu Community Centre. We're going to try a nice little recipe today. No fancy spicing or anything, just a pretty simple. This recipe is from Rick Stein, actually. I saw it on the Rick Stein show, and it's called chicken Parmentier, which is French, obviously. It's just a very fancy chefy word for this, sort of like, you know, you have a shepherd's pie, which is done with lamb mince or lamb and mashed potato on top. You have the cottage pie, which is, of course, Jackie, beef. Thank you. Beef with the mince, the mashed potato on top. This one is like a chicken version of that, with once again mashed potato on top. So, as far as I'm concerned, you just can't go wrong. Anything with mashed potato on top of it is a winner in my books. I'll just show you this. This is the recipe if you're wondering what the hell that word was. Chicken Parmentier. This is the original recipe from Rick Stein. I'll make a few alterations to it to make it a bit more user-friendly. But what we're going to do now is we'll start off with our... Get this going. We're going to just get the basis of this going. We'll do this in a few stages as we go. We're going to start off with our onions. You see over here, Jackie? Here's all our ingredients for this. Onions, carrots, celery, which they call the holy... Come on, Jackie. Celery.
Do not like celery.
I've only put a little bit of celery in this one instead of using the original quantity. And I've actually halved the quantity in the recipe because this recipe will feed about 6 people. I'm cutting it down to about a 3 or 4 person size one. So onions, carrot, celery, which is they call the Holy Trinity. We've got some stock. We've got you can either use fresh tomatoes or tinned tomatoes. We've got some tomato paste. We have some white wine goes into this. And of course, with being the chicken recipe, this is great because it's a way to use up leftover chicken. Now this was a roast chicken from yesterday. It's actually half the chook stripped down here. You could use a barbecue chook from the supermarket or your local barbecue chook shop. That's what is so good about this. It's a really fast dish to do, relatively speaking. So just warming this up, we'll get some butter in the pan. Now Rick calls for a shed load of butter in this, but I'm going to break it back a little bit and use butter and a bit of olive oil. The olive oil will help to stop the butter from burning. Some people, you see on a lot of these chefy shows, they like to take their butter down to like a nut brown because of the flavour it adds. We're not going to attempt that. If you take it too far, you burn your butter and then you're in trouble. So we'll add a bit of olive oil to our butter just to stop the butter from burning, as I said. Right, start getting our ingredients in. We'll start off with the onions. Yeah, Jack, try to splash you there. Onions, carrots and celery all in at the same time. So many chefs call this the Holy Trinity. It's sacrilegious, really. It's just food. Okay, so we'll give this maybe about 5 minutes till these ingredients soften and the carrots and celery soften and break down a little bit. And then we'll be right back to follow on for the rest of it. Right. These have started to soften. They're getting a little bit, we don't really need to get colour to these. These are starting to take a little bit of colour. We'll get our garlic in. We'll just give that a stir for a moment. This is a really good recipe for clearing out your vegetable crisper too. Just use any old vegetables you got left in there. We've already had our mashed potato. We're letting that. We've boiled our potatoes, letting them dry now. We'll get all this done and we'll put it all together shortly. But there's our garlic. A bit of cook on that. What we're going to do is pour in, ask for 4 tablespoons of wine. So we're going to add 2, and we'll cook some of that alcohol out of there. So that's boiling up quite vigorously, but we'll cook some of the wine out of that. We'll just leave a lovely flavour in there. That's almost gone now. Now we're going to put in tomato puree. This will be about a tablespoon. Quick stir in. Our stock. This is, as I said, half the amount of stock is required for the recipe. And some diced tomatoes. As I said, you can use fresh tomatoes chopped up, or just, I find it easy just to add a tin of tomatoes. Last of them. Okay, let me just stir that in. Now we're just going to cook this down. It's quite wet at the moment. We're going to cook this down for about 10 to 15 minutes, which will thicken this up a bit and boil off some of the liquid on it. And then we'll add our chicken and our last few bits and pieces here, and we'll assemble the dish. We'll also, in the meantime, we might even make the mashed potato, eh, Jack?
We will.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we've cooked down a lot of that liquid off that. The smell that comes off after you put white wine in is beautiful when you cook that white wine off. Adds a lovely depth of flavour into these sauces. At this stage, there's no seasoning in this, which we'll do in a moment. But first, we've got to get our olives. We didn't have full olives, so I'm using chopped Kalamata olives. Add our chicken. I've just shredded down that leftover roast chook. And a handful of parsley on top. So just quickly stir all that through. Don't cook it down too much. We want a little bit of liquid left in here. And it says it's not pooling, the liquid's not pooling, but you don't want it to dry it out too much. That's probably perfect right there. We'll add a little bit of seasoning. Let me taste that. Oh, yum. It's lovely, all the flavours there. It's just a little bit sweet at the moment. So we put in about, that's a big pinch of salt, two pinches of salt. Get in some pepper. Never have too much black pepper. I'm going to turn that down a bit more. And I just want to stir this through now. Stirring through our seasoning. I'll taste that again in just a moment. What we'll do is get our vessel ready. And so we're going to do it's about a half size of the original recipe. So this one does come in a fairly large container, a fairly large vessel. So if I can try not to spill this on myself, turn that heat off. Here it goes. Smooth that out. Take a towel. Okay, now here's our fun part. I've made a mashed potato. I didn't make it quite as rich as the original Rick Stein version. Being a chefy person, he just likes loads of butter, loads of cream. There's egg yolks and all that sort of thing in it. When I saw that on the show, I almost had a coronary. So I just make the mashed potato the way you normally like to make it. This has got a bit of butter, some milk, a large tablespoon of yogurt, which I like to add because yogurt for me gives it a nice little tang. The slight acidity of the yogurt gives it a really nice flavour. I've got some backing music there. They can just wait a few moments.
Okay.
We've got a production going on here, don't we? Know that. The Jeff and Jackie Production Incorporated. Okay. I'll just smooth that out a little bit. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some, this is just my little touch to this, add some breadcrumbs. Oh, where's that cheese? I'll add some cheese first. Now we just grated down some, this is grated tasty. Oh, yum. This has got all the things that are going to be nice on there, mashed potato, grated cheese on top. I'll put some breadcrumbs on so that'll crisp up in the oven. And I make my own breadcrumbs, just from any leftover loaf we have. This was actually a couple of hot dog rolls from the other day. What do we have there? Oh, yes, from our lunchtime classic. So I make them so they're a little bit rustic. They're chunky. It's not, I don't blend them down till they're tiny. That way, when you put a little bit of olive oil on top, they will just go really nice and crunchy. Then we'll pop this in the oven, and we'll probably actually do it a little bit later when we're about to have dinner. And then when I've got this completed, we'll come back and show you the completed dish. It's bubbling away. Okay, here we have it. The good thing about this is you can make it in advance. We made it this afternoon, and it's now dinner time, so I chucked this into the oven about half hour ago. It says between 35 to 40 minutes in the recipe. In the killer oven here, that was 30 minutes. I topped it with tasty cheese and some chunky breadcrumbs. As I said earlier, I make the breadcrumbs myself, and I like to keep them a little bit chunky, so when you do something like this, you get little crispy breadcrumbs on the top of it. So, on the side, we've steamed up some broccoli, and this is going to be polarizing, broccoli and Brussels sprouts. I love both of them. Some people I know find them a little bit difficult, but Brussels sprouts and butter and pepper, winner. Okay, and make sure you don't touch this plate because it's fresh out of the oven and going to be very, very hot. How much, Jack?
Yep.
Oh. Oop, messy one. Cheesy crust, that's mine. Okay, there we have it. That was the chicken Parmentier, or sort of like chicken shepherd's pie sort of thing, really. Simple. This is so easy to make. As you saw, I didn't even have to cook the chicken. Use leftover roast chicken. Buy a barbecue chicken. I only need half the barbecue chook. The recipe I've halved, and I've done it for, that's 4 big serves, and I halved the recipe. If you were to do the full recipe, you could feed quite easily, easily 6 people, 6 big eaters. We're not huge eaters, so that's going to cover us. And I reckon that's going to be beautiful. I tasted all the sauce and all that sort of stuff, the filling before, and it's really nice. So try this one and enjoy it. See you later.